Out of the frying pan and into the fire, as one might say. Spoiler season for Dominaria United just wrapped up, not too long ago, less than a month ago. Then all of a sudden we got spoiler season for Warhammer 40k last week. And now this is a brand new week. And I just got up the tier rankings as well as the Golden Pig rankings. I think this is the first time I've ever had to do them on the same day because today, Unfinity spoiler season is starting. I'm gonna need a lot of coffee. Regardless, my goodness, did this wake me up this morning because, oh my, this is real. Yes, one of the very first cards spoiled has me reconsidering the possibilities of what in the world a Magic card can be. So with all that said, let's jump into it. Now, really quick again, unless you see that acorn symbol in the bottom middle of the card, where the holographic part is, or whatever you want to call that thing, then the actual card is going to be legal in Eternal formats, like this one. There's no acorn symbol, so it is legal, so keep that in mind. And again, just as a reminder, Eternal formats do include Commander, of course. For this unset, the Wizards switched over, from a silver border to this new model, so we'll see, how exactly confusing it is for players. Regardless. So, Space Beleren, very clever Wizards, I see what you do with that there, is a legendary Planeswalker, Jace, obviously it is Jace, that costs 2 white blue and starts off with 3 starting loyalty, and it has Space Sculptor. Space Beleren divides the battlefield into Alpha, Beta, and Gamma sectors. If a creature isn't assigned to a sector, its controller assigns it to one. Opponents assign first. So basically, every creature on the battlefield is assigned into one of 3 sectors, and then based on that, well, the +1 is creatures in each sector can be blocked this turn only by creatures in the same sector. The -1 is put a +1 counter on each creature in the sector of your choice. And the ultimate, the -5, destroy all creatures in the sector of your choice. Now, first up, this is the first time we are really ever seeing a card like this, though there is something similar that I'll bring up here in a bit that actually is a previous Magic card from a long, long time ago. But yeah, basically, when this is in play, everyone needs to have their creatures in one of 3 sectors, or, they pick per each creature in different sectors. So have fun keeping track of that. If you just want to kind of tilt your opponents in a game of Commander, you might just want to play this one against someone's got a token deck or something. And actually, if you do want to be nice, maybe, draw up little cards or something like that, that say each of the names of the sectors, and then, give them out to your opponents when this comes into play so they can, place their creatures underneath those names. Regardless, keep in mind with that +1, that's basically only going to benefit you because obviously you're activating this on your turn, and again, it specifies creatures can't be blocked this turn. Or, you know what I mean, creatures only can block creatures that share a sector, essentially. So obviously there's a good amount of strategy to this. When this comes into play, your opponents to decide, what sectors their creatures are in first. You can see what those results are, and yeah, if you want to get through on a particular opponent, and they only have, a certain amount of creatures in a sector or no creatures in a sector, make your choices for your creatures accordingly. So you're probably going to benefit yourself the most by choosing the sector with the least number of creatures in it. Obviously also, that -1, getting a counter on each creature in the sector of your choice, that does impact your opponent's creatures as well. So yeah, you can lean heavily into one sector, which is probably what you're going to be doing. Again, you can just say, okay, all my creatures are in Gamma because that has the least amount of creatures in it, and then when I utilize that -1, sure, maybe some of my opponent's creatures get a benefit, but all of my creatures get the same. And obviously, since you're picking last again, you can make the decision that's best for you. And yeah, with that -5, the ultimate, if you want to call it that, destroying all creatures in a single sector. Obviously, if your creatures are only in 1 or 2 sectors, they can completely, whiff on that. So your creatures aren't affected at all. Your creatures stay on the board, and, 1/3 of your opponent's creatures or whatnot get taken out. So in a way, it can be somewhat of a one-sided board wipe. But of course, that really depends on how things shake out and where players, put their creatures in what sector. And of course, starting off at 3 starting loyalty, and with that being, a -5, that +1 can get you there quite quickly. Now, when it comes to, more rules about this card, I'm not exactly sure what happens, if, say, let's say, Jace leaves the battlefield, or Space Jace, whatever we want to call it, leaves the battlefield. Do those sectors then go away, or are those creatures still assigned to those sectors? I mean, what if Jace, comes back? What if, you bounce Jace or blink Jace, or, hits the graveyard, you bring it back? Do those sectors get reassigned? Can a creature be in 2 sectors then, if it, again, comes into play a second time? I've got no idea. Rules lawyers out there, please let me know what your thoughts are. I mean, I would think they just get reassigned, but who knows? Regardless, yeah, we really have never seen a card like this. It's a card that can be, well, quite complex and can lead to some very interesting decisions. Now, like I mentioned earlier, though, there is a card that is somewhat similar to this one, and it is a very old card. I mean, again, that Wizards has not made a card since then like this for a reason, because this is kind of complex. And that card would be a card on the reserve list with Raging River. I mean, this card is really, really old, back in, I believe, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. Yeah, so this thing is really old, quite expensive as well for one of those versions. $316 is what I'm seeing for the limited edition. Regardless, yeah, again, since it is such an old card, I am going to read its Oracle Text. It's an enchantment for red. Whenever one or more creatures you control attack, each defending player divides all creatures without flying they control into left pile and right pile. Then for each attacking creature you control, choose left or right. That creature can't be blocked this combat except by creatures with flying and creatures in a pile with the chosen label. So this is pretty complex. I mean, more simple than, the new Space Jace, which has 3 different zones, for everyone. I mean, if you actually think about it thematically, this makes sense. Cool, okay, there's 2 sides of a river. All right, my creatures are going to be attacking someone on one side or the other. If the creature's got flying that's defending, it doesn't matter because that creature can fly back and forth to block. And then whatever creatures end up on the same side are basically doing combat. Sure, that makes sense, but when it actually comes to application, there's a lot of decision points, and this can take a while to decide for every single player attacking in every combat. And yeah, I mean, the Jace version is going to be more simplistic in actual application when it comes to, actually attacking, because you're like, okay, you just know you can't block with certain creatures because your creatures are in a different zone. But obviously, it's more complex in that there are more zones and more things that you can do with, those creatures in those zones. But again, there's a reason we have not seen a card for a very, 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 very long time like this one up until now, which is in, in unset. Now, obviously, with Space Jace being a Planeswalker, there are plenty of things that work very well with it. I mean, okay, first, Proliferate. Yep, Proliferate works well because you can get more counters on Space Jace to, help get to whatever, the ultimate if you really want to, quicker. Awesome. Oath of Fairy is another thing that can help out, and this one is in Space Jace's colors. When it enters the battlefield, exile a target permanent you control, return to the battlefield under its owner's control to begin the next end step. So again, blink Space Jace. What happens? I don't know. I mean, I would think that the different sectors get reassigned or whatever. People can choose different ones. I'm not sure. Rules lawyers, please help me out in the comments below. Thank you. But also, you may activate loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control twice each turn rather than once. Now, obviously, that can help you get your ultimate more quickly. I mean, it doesn't actually, make a difference with that ability if you +1 twice. I mean, your creatures are still unblockable against creatures that can't block it, essentially, right? Of course, if you want to get to that ultimate right away, for, again, your quote-unquote one-sided board wipe, doubling season is a way to do that. Yeah, I mean, if I don't mention this card in a Planeswalker episode, I get comments. So yeah, doubling season basically doubles up the amount of counters put on a permanent you control. So cool, Jace comes into play, comes away with 6 counters instead of 3. The -5, yep, there you go. Ultimate right away. And speaking of ultimating quicker, yeah, Carthalion loves Planeswalkers and can really help them out. Let's just skip that first part. It can get more Planeswalkers. But yeah, the next part is Planeswalkers loyalty abilities you activate. Cost initial +1 to activate. Now, with a first read through of this, that might seem like a bad thing, but basically what it means is, okay, your +1 is now a +2. Jace's -1 is now a +0, or I mean just basically what, 0. And its -5 is now a -4. So you essentially can go to 5 loyalty with that +1, which is now a +2, and then next turn, ultimate, again with a -4, and still keep Jace in play. It just makes your Planeswalkers more efficient. Now, when it comes to creatures that can work well with this new Jace, again, you can essentially make your creatures somewhat unblockable or, unblockable against certain players or in certain situations. So, yeah, Phage the Untouchable was the very first creature that came to my mind as one that you might want to make unblockable. Phage has a lot of decks, so here we go. Enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast from your hand, you lose the game. So don't do that. When it deals counter to a creature, destroy the creature can be regenerated. That's nice, but most importantly, whenever it deals counter to a player, that player loses the game. So yeah, especially with creatures that you really want to get through, this new Space Jace can be very, very impactful. If Phage is in the Gamma Quadrant and your opponents only have creatures in the Alpha and Beta Quadrants, I think I got those right, then, oh no, they are very much in trouble when Phage comes through at them. And in a somewhat similar but not as brutal way, there's Scythe Claw, and there's other creatures like this as well. Essentially, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So, yeah, this is a living weapon, so it comes on a germ. So you can, swing with this. Again, if this is a Gamma, your opponents only have, Alpha Beta. Have fun hitting them and losing half their life. And of course, there are plenty of other creatures that want to get through and have awesome and devastating triggers. Self-Led Constable, if you can get any amount of extra power onto this can be insane. When it deals counter to a player, return up to that many target permanents that player controls to owner's hands. So, yeah, if you get this to a decent amount of power, this can bounce a player's lands back to their hand, and they're just done at that point. But yeah, I think the first consideration for how this Space Jace can work is, how do you want to get your creatures through? Obviously, if you just have a massive army, that can just be impactful with that. But if there are specific creatures in a deck that, might also utilize other Planeswalkers and Planeswalker synergies, it's definitely a consideration. On the other hand, a +1/+1 counter strategy might want to consider it as well, as, you can distribute a lot of counters out to your creatures. Herald of Secret Streams is one that actually kind of works in an interesting way with this Jace. Creatures you control +1 counters on them can't be blocked. So again, Jace's +1 is nice, but the -1 might be even better if, again, you choose every single one of your creatures to be in, the Gamma Quadrant or, one specific quadrant or whatever it is, Sector Quadrant. I forget already. If you get all those counters on all your creatures, now they are unblockable with Herald in play. Or obviously there are certain triggers as well whenever counters get placed on creatures like, Fathom Mage. Whenever a +1 counter is put on it, you may draw a card. Or Herd Baloth. Whenever one or more +1 counters are put on Herd Baloth, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. So yeah, again, there are plenty of +1 counter synergies out there, and yeah, in a deck that is utilizing Space Jace and, counter synergies, is probably also going to utilize proliferate effects, which of course work very well with, Planeswalkers like Jace to get more loyalty counters on them, and of course also creatures, once you get that first counter on them, keep proliferating it, keep getting more counters on it for a lot of value. So speaking of which, one commander that might be considering this new Space Jace is Atraxa Praetor's Voice. Atraxa is a 4/4 with Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink that says at the beginning of your end step, proliferate. Which again means choose any number of permanents and or players and give each another counter of each kind already there. So yeah, certain Atraxa builds out there are Super Friends focused, some are +1/+1 counter focused, and other builds as well, and some are actually, a combination of each. So if you've got a build that, has both Super Friends as well as +1 counters, you can definitely take advantage of a card like Space Jace, which of course, you can get more counters on it with this proliferate effect and others, and then also of course be able to distribute counters very easily to your creatures to really help them out with that proliferating as well. Another very new Super Friends commander, though, is Joda the Unifier, which just came out in Dominator United, which seems like just yesterday, and it wasn't too long ago, but yeah. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards to the top of your library to exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast the card without paying its mana cost, but the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. So this essentially has like legendary cascade. You can go from one legendary spell to another. And yeah, your creatures, your legendary creatures can get absolutely massive with this commander in play. And with Space Jace, well, you can make them even larger if you want to get counters on them, but also, yeah, making them basically unblockable against certain players or against certain creatures can be great because, again, Joda might give them a bunch of, power and toughness, but it doesn't give them any kind of evasion or, trample, so you can get them through on players, and again, you're going to be hitting for a ton. And, also wiping the board, or wiping, certain creatures off the board can be very impactful to get your creatures through too. Next up, how about the Prismatic Bridge? And yes, I know the other side is Eska, but yeah, Prismatic Bridge is what more players are going to be playing with when it comes to a Super Friends build. Basically, reveal cards off the top of your library until you get a creature or planeswalker, put it on the battlefield, the rest of them on your library in a random order. And that happens at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, so yeah, this can provide you a lot of value throughout the game. Again, if you've got, kind of a split build between, Super Friends and, creatures, or if you've got some planeswalkers out there that can make you a lot of creature tokens, etc., yes, Space Jace is definitely one to consider. And the last 5-color Super Friends commander that I'm going to bring up, though, is Sisay Weatherlight Captain. Gets ++1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control. Pay Wooburg. Basically go tutor out a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power. Get it right onto the battlefield. So Sisay at a certain point can become a very heavy hitter. I mean, if you just have, at 5 colors with the permanents in play, legendary permanents that is, Sisay is going to be a 7/7. Plus you can also tutor out things like, Blackblade Reforged, so Sisay can hit for a ton, easily becoming, a 2-shot or even 1-shot KO at a certain point. So making her essentially unblockable can definitely be a great way to go about it. Or again, if you've got, that split kind of a deck where you've got Super Friends and legendary creatures that are fantastic. Or again, planeswalkers that can make a bunch of tokens, Sisay can get you the right planeswalker for the right situation that you're in, and Space Jace can really help out. Again, either get creatures through, make them larger, or, yeah, wipe some parts of the board. And finally, one commander that I do want to bring up that can be built in a Super Friends way that does like to mess with combat quite a bit. Let's talk about Prambakan Sky Rampart. It has, when it enters the battlefield, choose left or right. Each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction, and planeswalkers controlled by that opponent. So you can determine what direction players are attacking, and with that, I mean, this can be very impactful with Jace as well, because you can say, okay, I need to attack, left. I'm going to be attacking left, and I know that. That player doesn't choose a lot. Again, in Gamma, I'll choose my creatures to be Gamma so they can get through on that player. In a similar way, I mean, the player on your right, maybe they picked a certain, sector. Again, that might benefit you. You might be able to actually take out those creatures that would be attacking you by, again, ultimating Jace, essentially. So, yeah, of course, a deck that is looking to mess with your opponent's combat might really like a Planeswalker that likes to mess with your opponent's combats. And adding another layer into things that you have to keep track of. Okay, we can only attack this direction. These are your creatures in this sector, this sector, this sector. Yeah, I mean, this might be a way to tilt your friends as well and just throw them off their game. But now this episode is coming to a close. It's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Space Beleren. Again, that's a really good pun for that name. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I was expecting to see some weird cards. Now, was I expecting to see a card that had players assign each of their creatures to a sector? No. So, I mean, this kind of just starts, things off, this is the level that we are going to see most likely of cards and craziness happening in this set. And again, when I'm saying that, I'm saying ones that are going to be legal in Eternal formats. Again, if it doesn't have the acorn at the bottom middle, it is going to be a legal card in Eternal formats, including Commander. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what other exciting spoilers we're going to be seeing from Unfinity, and yeah, I hope you are as well, so make sure you stay tuned to this channel for even more exciting quick takes coming up. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you, so make sure you comment below and let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.